and that proposal came not from us. That proposal was from Russian Federation. We decided not to hide anything, and if there is a concern, we are ready to respond to it. We don't want consultations just for the sake of consultations, just to go and hear that the agreement threatens Russian economy and it is not profitable and Russia will never agree. We have a different approach. We have a technical approach. There should be concrete questions, concrete concerns, and by facts, and we'll give the answers for that. So we'll not just exchange political jokes, and we'll speak not about disagreements or our priorities, but we'll speak to the subject around the subject. We'll show tables, calculations, and we'll try to convince Russian Federation that it doesn't threaten the economy. There is no economic explanation to those economic sanctions which grow, that Russian Federation will start a trade war against Ukraine. So there's the first date on July 11. There will be those consultations will be in Brussels. We'll prepare to those consultations just to inform them about our position, and then we hope that Russian Federation, it will be much more difficult for Russian Federation to appeal to some kind of trade protective measures when we introduce a completely different response. Now I will touch on no visa regime, because that is an issue which is very important, and all Ukrainians think about that. And as you know, that on Monday it was approved, there was a decision approved that Ukraine successfully finished the first stage, and we can move to the second action plan on visa liberalization. And that plan, in difference to the previous one, where it was important to approve legislation, now they will expect from us effective implementation in many fields, and that is about security of borders and corruption fight and discrimination fight and cooperation of police, security on borders, and the main issue will be, of course, biometric passports that meet requirements. So this is what is expected from us on this second stage. For us to monitor the process, how Ukraine complies with these new requirements. Ukraine in September and in October, there will be 2 expert missions in Ukraine. They will monitor and give recommendations, and they go to different agencies on how to better finish the second stage. I know objectively there is a question when. As to when, I don't support deadlines, and here's my explanation. Because the issue depends not completely on Ukraine. Of course, 90% of work we are supposed to do, because that is about implementation of our law, and we should demonstrate to EU that, look, we did it, and we deserve no visa regime. But in EU, it's not easy. There are some internal procedures around this. For example, even the last fact between a decision of European Commission and a political decision, it took a month for them. For us, a month is too much. When everything is something changing, for us it's too long. So when we have a goal that in half a year we should have a no visa regime, so a month is too much. It's too long. And we have an explanation for that, but they have their own arguments. They wanted to see results of different missions, the beginning a technical decision, then a political. So what we prepare for, we would like to have it in half a year, but it doesn't mean that since January 1 we will have no visa regime. So we are working on this, but I don't want to create I don't want to set your expectations high for you not to be disappointed. So we do what we can, but there is not only our work is required here. Probably we'll stop on this, otherwise it will be just a monologue. And if you have any question, please, you're welcome. Dmitry Felukunian, I have two clarifications on no visa regime. Maybe it makes sense to sign no visa regime with separate with especially to those countries that support us, because they have Eurosceptics, and you see, that is not only possible. We work with a number of countries, like the last decision was with Germany, that they will cancel payment for Ukrainians and for their visas. But if you speak about a general approach, it's better to work together with the whole EU and to have an agreement. Like we have visa liberalization with the agreement, and there are some exceptions for the UK and Denmark. They do not belong to Schengen zone. But because there is a certain responsibility, so it's better to have the same rules with all, but not to work separate with everyone. So we will do that. And we have a positive experience in Moldova. So Moldova could use their chance from EU, and they started to use advantages of no visa regime. When I consider your liberty, to which extent, how serious it is the conflict in the East, how can it influence on the situation? You're right. Unfortunately, when we prepared assessment of expert missions in the end of the first stage, complying with criteria on security of borders was the best, and the situation on the borders was very good. And because of the situation in the east, we cannot say that we control Ukrainian-Russian border. So there is an issue, and EU realizes is aware what is happening here, but doesn't mean that we will stop. So we believe that it should be stopped at some point, at some time. So the president does everything possible for that situation to come to some constructive road. So Moldova had a similar problem with Transnistria. On certain stages, there were some comments from EU as to Transnistria, but they were able to solve the issue. So that's why the situation is not hopeless. Dmitry Channel 5. Lavrov expressed his opinion about a free trade area with EU, and it's clear. For them, it's clear. So, have you which industries will suffer from Russian sanctions? We discussed this issue as to arguments of Russian Federation. So they made it up. Just think about 2005 when we joined WTO. The arguments were the same, that everything is bad. European goods, they would destroy Russian economy. That's why we urgently should close the borders. And so all of that was made up arguments. So our approach is the same. We don't want to play such political games. So we'll come and we'll show them our calculations, and we hope they will show their calculations, and then we'll act according to that. What I hear often that Russians refer that such protective measures is because of free trade area with EU, and they have their role. It's an exaggeration. They say if there is a negative influence of input on economy of other countries, they can they can review custom duties, and that should happen only after consultations. So if there is a free trade area in CIS, so let's stick to that agreement too. About three parties consultations. Is it clear where? Do you know where that will take place, on which level, where? EU suggested to have it on the 11th of July, and there will be Karel de Gucht, the Commission on Trade, that will be in Brussels, and Ukrainian. There's a discussion who will represent Russian Federation, who will represent Ukraine. A clarification. Angela Merkel told that it's necessary that Viktor Medvedchuk has an official status in pre-negotiations in the East. What's your attitude, and who, in your opinion, should represent interests of Donbass, as they say? You know our position. On one hand, we want to give a chance to peace, even despite everything, for us to have a moral right to appeal to European countries. That look, we did everything for the dialogue. We developed the peaceful plan. We agreed with all. We agreed with the elites. We did it. We comply honestly with the plan, and the Russia doesn't do anything. They violate, and they don't do anything. That's why will have a moral right to appeal later to European community and to the US. That's one point. Second one, as to who would represent. I understand the logics of Angela Merkel. EU is very much interested that the issue of our conflict to move to diplomatic level and to stay there for us, for no military actions not to be there. If he can demonstrate himself as a very good negotiator, then she would stand for him. As to us, from the very beginning, in Ukraine was represented by Pavel Clinton, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and now Leonid Kuchma represents Ukraine in these negotiations. Other negotiators, if they are involved and if they get agreement of the President of Ukraine, we will look how it happens. I have a question about ratification of the agreement. How can you give deadlines for ratification? It's not my field. It's the question to the Parliament. We would like it to happen in July, to be ratified before the Parliament goes to vacations, so we can ratify it. Will it happen? I don't know. I cannot promise. When we give our proposals, when we meet in committees of the Parliament, we also depict the situation why we need this ratification to move quick. Because this regime of one-party preferences between the EU and Ukraine, so it's all on the 1st of November. So if we don't ratify the agreement in time, there will be a gap between a regime which will stop working on the 1st of November, and then the agreement is not approved. So we'll put our producers in very bad condition, because the approach they use will not work. So we don't want to have a gap between preference mode and ratification. So we hope the Parliament will hear the position of the government and will not postpone the ratification. About negotiations, a lot of people say that Europe is interested in peaceful negotiations, not only because of peace, but to show this conflict as an internal Ukrainian conflict, civic conflict, and to make it clear that Ukraine should solve this conflict, and Europe will forget about us. How dangerous is there such a danger that we will stay alone, and if Russia takes a distance from all of these events? It's an exaggeration because despite serious Russian propaganda abroad, including EU, which supported financially and it's just quite powerful in EU, a few are misled by that. They don't believe that this is a civic war in Ukraine. Quite the opposite. I would sooner say that the difference in positions in the EU doesn't come down to the assessment of the conflict. They are aware that this is the result of Russian provocation. The difference starts when they speak about the level of sanctions. Then they have different approach. They have difference because some EU countries, because of economic ties with Russian Federation, they don't want the third stage of sanctions to different sectors of economy. They want Ukraine to sit together and solve all of that on the diplomatic level, because it will be easier for all. So again, we don't see they no, they understand the situation. They recognize that information propaganda is very strong, and all the events are distorted. And there's after you watch Russian TV for 10 minutes, you start believing that. So everything is done on a very high level. But again, they are not they are not wrong. They are not misled. They understand the situation. They are informed well by the embassies in Ukraine. Also, they work with NGOs and they get information from them. So the picture is more or less objective. The question is, what's after that? And that's where different views begin. The same was about three-party consultations. So there are some countries in EU who are very reserved to such consultations, and they are afraid that Russian Federation will use these consultations to influence on the volume of the agreement or its application. We will not discuss it. There is an agreement, and it will not be reviewed, even if tariffs will be changed. But that's on two level, on the level between EU and Ukraine. At the beginning, you spoke about the presentation in the East of pro-European policy. What's that? Signing the agreement. If no question, let me ask the last question as a moderator. Paulo Clinton at the meeting with ministers of the Council of Europe, he announced the peaceful plan of President Poroshenko. They support the plan, and they understand the aggressive behavior of Russia. Tomorrow, the signing of the agreement will be some correlation because they will sign the economic agreement and political. So next political steps of maybe of Russia and I don't see any correlation because there is an agreement. It's one document. We signed it in two stages. Yes, we signed a political part, and the second one is about trade and economy. But this is one document. If it is applied, it is applied completely, except that part, which is a part that is a national competence of EU countries. That's where we need ratification. Again, I repeat. This is a historic event. It took us 7 years to come to this stage, especially you know how that happened in the end of the last year when, despite all preparation, despite everything on negotiation for 5 years, everything was stopped because of known events, and it was not easy, not only for agencies responsible for negotiations, but for all Ukrainians. So my message is, yes, a lot of work. It will take a lot of work. So bananas will not fall from the sky. So, but we are ready to work, and it's good, it's correct, because what does it give to us, this agreement? A plan of reforms we should have for us to have a European level of life. That's why there is a plan, it is written, and it was already used by many countries quite successfully. If we do the same, then we will also be proud to look into the eyes of each other. Thank you, Natalia. We'll wait for this for Sun. We are very thankful for your active position during all this time.
Запитання ще про ексклюзивно. Скажіть, будь ласка, на чому, на вашу думку, має зосередитися Україна? На чому має зосередитися Україна після того, як саме йшло буде підписано про асоціацію?
Фактично,